You might be able to tell this xylophone is a little low for me personally. I'm not going to adjust it today because I'm taller than a lot of the middle schoolers that'll play this, and I'm not going to be playing it anytime soon. But I'll show you, if you have a model of xylophone similar to this one, it's easy to adjust. Make it a two-person job. Don't just open this up and let it drop, because it'll just drop the one leg and it will be lopsided with all the others around. So have somebody hold on to it while you loosen these. Have somebody hold on to that end while you loosen these, maybe even a three-person job, and then let them lower it. There's a little guide right here. You can measure how far you are from this. If you don't have this type of xylophone and you need it adjusted, you can always put blocks on the ground to lift. Let's talk mallet selection. This is another good source of confusion and overwhelm. If you've heard of Balter blues, I don't have any here today. Those are great. These are Balters. I don't know if we're calling these the Balter yellows. But Mike Balter makes some really great mallets. These I don't have a brand for, all they're labeled is Model 4 Birch, but you'll hear the difference. So this one's a little bit harder mallet, and this one's rubber. So again, we're talking about attack. If we want less attack, we use the rubber mallets. If we want more attack, then we use the harder mallets. A lot of percussion sections will have some mix of different styles. These look a little bit like Balter blues, but I don't think they are. They'd be labeled. This is, I think, a rattan, maybe, shaft. And so when you get into the different types of shafts, that can be a little confusing. But for xylophone, I prefer something that's gonna be solid. Like the ones you just saw. They don't really bend. And I think this bendy one here might have actually been a suspended cymbal mallet at one point that was wrapped in yarn and it just all came off. I want to show you how hard these can be. These are probably both more suitable for bells or something that's a novelty on xylophone if you really want hard mallets on a xylophone. So I would not allow my students to use these regularly. I would have them all have a uniform mallet to start with, and if we need something that's a different sound, we'd toggle between something like these two. I'll say this on the marimba video too, yarn mallets and non-yarn mallets need to be separated. Don't use yarn mallets on a xylophone. It's not an emergency for the xylophone, you're just not going to hear it, but it can harm the yarn mallet if you're using it aggressively. They'll start to fray a lot faster. And then definitely never use a xylophone or bell mallet on a marimba or a vibraphone. That's not good for those instruments. They are meant to be used with yarn and wrapped mallets only. So make sure that you have your kids know the difference between what mallet is for each instrument. And there are some bell mallets that have no business being used on xylophone also. And you can tell your kids to keep their fingers off the xylophone if you'd like, just to keep them in good shape. Usually they're synthetic, so it's not going to matter too much, but you don't really want to clean them too often. So I tell mine to not touch them the way I am. Let's talk about how to hold the mallet. These are pretty long shafts, but I would still say divide into thirds and hold right about at between the first and second third. Backs of your hands are up, just like with snare drum, and these two fingers are doing most of the work. These three fingers are not flying away, but they're there to help, and they stop the mallet motion. I don't know if you can see that. There's not a lot of action going on here, it's just that it stops. Okay, and again, you'll see a little more arm movement with xylophone because you have to reach, but you don't want this action for playing the bar. We talk about a piston stroke. So have your students imagine the piston in an engine that has to go straight up and down. It can't go any other direction. That's what you want on your xylophone also. And you want a rebound. And now when we see this come into play is when they're playing maybe up and down a scale or a passage in a song. You should try to hover the mallet over the instrument before you start your action of playing the bar, instead of going like hitting it lopsided or sideways. We don't want this motion. We want a straight up and down motion. Okay, or like this motion is not good. We want straight up and down, piston stroke. So you'll see students hover and then move. And it's the opposite of piano. Usually on a piano, you want to set your butt there and you don't want to move a lot. You don't want to move your whole body. You just move your arms as needed. With xylophone and marimba, you walk a little bit, okay? Remind them if they're playing something that's really complex, don't cross your feet and walk. You kind of shuffle as needed. As far as the bar itself, we want to play right over the center, and if your instrument has resonators, play right over the open hole of the resonator. If that's not doable, say it's a quick run and you can't get all the way up to that center of the bar, play right on the edge of the bar right here. It's not so likely you'll need to play down here, but this is still a good sound. What we want to avoid is playing on the node where the string runs through the bar. And you can instantly hear the difference in that sound. Here's over the pipe, here's over the node. I didn't change anything about my playing style. If I need my mallets to play a little quieter so that I can focus on something going on in front, I tell them to flip their mallets around and play this way. And then they can just be rehearsing while we're working on some other stuff. One thing to tell your students never to do on a xylophone is double bounce. Just like timpani, we don't double bounce any of our rolls. Snare drum, we do buzz rolls. Xylophone, we do single clean rolls. If you notice how I'm holding my mallets at a 90-degree angle, it can be like this. Or if you're playing up, that angle can turn. Just make sure that you have them roughly in the same spot in the bar. We don't want them spread out. Or like this. We want them right here. Never interrupting the ring. If we do try to double bounce, rubber ones are not going to make it happen for us at all. The bolters. Let's see if I can get it to work. So you can start to see why that's not going to be something we do. These bolters will work great for bells as well. And if you need to mute them, go ahead. And again, we never double bounce on the bells. But further than that, we will rarely ever roll on the bells at all. There's too much attack going on with the metal bar and the hard mallet. If you have, a lot of times you'll have a xylophone and bell part together, and they'll say you can play it on either or, so you might take one of your percussionists, put them on bells, take another and put them on xylophone. The xylophone player will roll the half notes in longer. The bell player will not, simply let them ring. Never any reason to roll on bells unless the music specifically calls for that, and that will be very rare. Another very rare thing on the bells is the need for brass mallets. This is a common mistake. There is no reason to have brass mallets in your regular rotation for bells. If your students have regular access to brass mallets and are using them on the bells, take them away, replace them with some bolters or something different, and here's what it sounds like with brass mallet. So that's a novelty effect. There might be music that calls for it. It's not extremely rare, but wait until your music says specifically to use brass mallets, or until your judgment of the part says, I really want these bells ringing above the rest of the world. But otherwise, tuck these away, only get them out when you can control that they have been used.